Welcome to this free video lesson by Talkly.co.uk in which we are going to do a full First Language English Paper 1, the reading paper together timed. So before you do this lesson, I do recommend that you watch my full tips lesson where I talk you through all of the different tips and tricks for each of these questions. The purpose of this lesson is that we are actually going to do it together. I'm going to do it along with you. We're going to have the full 2 hours and then we're going to mark the questions. So do make sure that before you start this video lesson that you have either printed off the past paper, which is linked down below, or that you've got an iPad that you can do it on, and that you have got at least 2.5 hours ahead of you so that you can do this practice timed under exam conditions. Now, the aim of this practice is really just to get a handle on your pacing and exam technique, just to remind you what do you need to do for each question, how long should you be spending on it, and what does it actually feel like to complete a full past paper in the 2 hours timed nicely, so that hopefully when you come to do your real exam, it will be like muscle memory and all of this will kick into gear. Now, as we do the practice, you can see over here is my timer for the 2 hours. So that's the total time of our whole practice. And then over here will be the timing of each question. So we'll have 15 minutes for short answer question, 20 minutes for summary, so on and so forth. I will also remind you guys of the key takeaways for each question based on the last video lesson that I did. And for the questions, I will have what I'm doing up here. Now, if it's the short answer questions, I'm not going to put up my answers here because that's just like telling you the answer, but I will show you me highlighting my insert. For summary writing, language analysis, and question 3, though, I'll let you see what I'm typing as I'm typing it, so that can maybe help you. If you really want to challenge yourself, though, don't look at what I'm writing because that can help make sure that you're doing it under proper exam conditions. And if you're finding me a little bit annoying, I won't talk too much, but I will talk a little bit. Feel free to mute me or turn me down. It's fine. So you need to decide for yourself this practice. How much help are you going to give yourself? How much are you going to look at my screen? How much are you going to listen to me? But the main thing is really we need to do this practice under exam conditions timed and just see what it feels like. So have your question paper in front of you. So we are doing this paper from November 2022, which is the underwater hotel paper. Okay, all right. So we are beginning with questions 1A to E, the short answer questions, and our time begins now. So we are beginning with question 1A to E. So remember, you need to read through the questions and then read the text. Unless it says using your own words, you should just directly copy. Remember to skim and scan the text, don't waste time, so we don't need to spend too long doing this by reading the text in depth. The number of marks is the number of points that we should make, so on the 3 markers we need to make sure that we're making 3 separate points. And when we are defining, remember that you shouldn't use the word in your own definition. Okay, right, so we are beginning now with question 1, and I'm going to be quiet. So right here I am having a look through my insert and I'm just going to skim along, look at the questions. Each question will tell me what paragraph I can find the answer in. So if the question says in paragraph 1, I'm going to quickly skim over paragraph 1 and so on. So I'm not spending too long reading. Another tip is to highlight where you got the answers from, and that way later on it's a lot easier to check if your answer was correct because you'll be able to find where you got that information from and just double check it. 3 minutes left, so you're probably on the 3 mark questions now. Just a reminder that on that last question, 2E, make sure that you're using your own words and that you are saying 3 separate points of answer it. All right, 3 minutes left. See you there. Okay, and your time is now up for summary writing, for question one rather. Now we're on to summary writing. So remember then that for summary writing, these are my key takeaways. Let me make it bigger. So you should be trying to find at least 10 to 13 different individual points for our summary. So we're going to read through and we're going to highlight our 10 to 12 different points. So that's the first step that we're going to do right now. Okay. So everyone, firstly, what you need to do is you need to go back and you need to read the question. So the question says, according to text B, what are the arguments against swimming with dolphins and what are responsible operators doing to improve the situation? Now, because I've got two different parts here, I might even be tempted to say, let's highlight anything related to arguments against swimming with dolphins in one colour and anything about responsible tour operators, what they're doing to improve in a different colour. That will help with our planning. Okay, so now let's go to text B and we're going to highlight to see if we can find the answers. Everyone do that together now. I recommend that you spend 10 minutes planning and then 10 minutes in your writing. So that is how you should pace yourself. That's what I'm going to aim for as I go through this section. So I've just made a little key for myself so I know what I'm looking for. I'm going to highlight everything against swimming with dolphins in yellow and everything that tour operators are doing to improve in pink. Okay, for me, I'm at the point where I found all of the answers. Next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to think how am I going to group these together? So I'm going to try and create some sort of little plan of which points are going to go closely together. Obviously, I'm going to have a paragraph about arguments against and another paragraph about improvements, but which sentences are going to flow next to each other. So that's my next step now. I'm going to think how to plan and then I'm going to start writing when there's 10 minutes left. So I've got just under 4 more minutes of planning time. What I recommend that you do is create some sort of key. So try to think which points belong together and code them in some way. So it might be that you write a little star next to the ones that you think are similar and a heart next to others, and so on and so forth. You don't need to do a big detailed plan, simply a little symbol will be enough so that when you're writing, you're like, yep, okay, these points should go in sentences near each other, and these points should go in sentences near each other. Okay, and so now we're on to our writing time. So we've had 10 minutes of planning. We're going to do 10 minutes of writing. So you can see that my plan here is I'm going to have one paragraph about arguments against swimming, and I'm going to group my points by physical problems, mental problems, and social problems we cause to dolphins. And in my second paragraph about what can tour guides do to improve, I'm going to think about numbers, the way that we approach the dolphins, and how we show respect. And that's how I'm going to group my paragraphs. Now I'm going to write 120 words ish, which is going to be about this long or just under. And I'm not going to write an introduction or a conclusion. Every single sentence that I write should be including a point. I haven't checked the mark scheme, so hopefully I have got a point, all of the points down here. And remember it says using your own words, so you have to try to paraphrase. Be careful not to change the meaning and be as short and as concise as you can be. Right? 9.5 minutes for me. Let me try and write this summary. So I've got 3 minutes left and I think I finished my summary. But in that spare time, I'm just going to go back to the extract and make sure that I've not missed some points because my second paragraph seems quite a lot shorter than my first. So I'm wondering if I missed some points. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so now we're moving on to question two, which is our vocabulary questions, short answer questions. We're going to have 15 minutes for this. So I recommend that what you do is you skim and scan. So you have a look at the questions first and see what you're looking for and just try and skim through and find the vocabulary. Don't spend too long on reading it this time around because we're going to get to read it in a lot more depth later on. So for this one, I'm not going to show you the answers because that's just me telling you the answers if I do that, but I will show you what I'm highlighting on my insert. So right now you should head on over to your question paper and skim read through the questions so that as you're reading the text for the first time, you know exactly what you're looking out for. Here you can just be skimming and scanning and trying to find a word that means the same. So here you can just be skimming, you know that you need to find a word that means the same as in the beginning. So you can just let your eyes breeze past and try and find something that has that similar meaning. Remember that for this question, the first half, we are just copying from the text. So you're skimming and scanning and trying to find the words from the text. You are not defining in your own words. So for 2A, we're just going to copy the phrase directly from the text, whereas in 2B, we are defining using our own words. So I finished 2A, now I'm going to move on to 2B. So remember, this is when you are giving the words, giving the definition using your own words. So if you're up to the same point as me, just a reminder about that. So with 5 minutes left, I think you should now be on to 2C. So remember, 2C, you have to pick just one quote. So you pick one from the section there and make sure that it's saying something about Jenny's feelings, right? That's what the question's asking. You have to pick one quote, no more than one. And if you don't have a quote, you can't get any marks. Then you have to say three things, at least three things that that quote suggests. What is it showing about the environment and how Jenny feels about it? So go ahead and do that. Okay, so time is coming to an end. We're about to move on to language analysis. So as we come on to language analysis, let me just delete our old timer. As we come on to language analysis, remember here are some sentence starters that can help you if you would like. I will leave them up. I'll put them back up in a second, but key takeaways, don't forget we have to have an overall effect sentence and then quote, meaning, connotations, effect following it. Don't analyse language devices, and we're only analysing from the 2 paragraphs that we've been assigned. We're going to make sure our quotes are powerful and juicy enough to be on the mark scheme, and we need to show that we understand both the literal meaning and the deeper implicit meaning. So let me put the sentence starters back on to help us. Okay. Right, so we're looking at paragraph 8 and paragraph 10. So I'm going to go back to paragraph 8 and paragraph 10, and I'm just going to quickly pick my images and have a bit of a brainstorm. Maybe you're going to spend about 5 or 6 minutes on that, I think, before I start writing. Wait, already forgotten the paragraphs. 8 and 10. Okay, 8 and 10. Okay, and I've gone slightly over in my own planning time. So I've got my quotes highlighted and I've written some things around what I'm gonna analyze with them, and now I'm gonna start writing, I think. So I'm gonna spend just under 10 minutes per paragraph writing up. That's my plan. What's yours? So now as I begin, I'm gonna write my overall effect sentence. So I need to remember to say what is the overall effect of the paragraph and then zoom into my images. There is 8.5 minutes remaining, so you should probably be onto your second paragraph now. And if you answer one of the paragraphs better than the other, you are going to limit your marks. So do make sure that you put equal thought into both of them. Move on to paragraph 2. 8 minutes left. Okay, and now we're finishing up our question 2, and we're going to move on to our question 3, which is the big one. So finish up if you're still writing. Panic. Beautiful. Okay. So let's get our last timer on. So we've got 40 minutes. I'm going to say about 10 minutes of planning and 30 minutes of writing, there or thereabouts. So a reminder that this is the structure that we want. But first, we need to analyse our question. So remember, we need to annotate for verb. So verb is voice, audience, register, purpose, format. So let's see, let's look at our question and see if we can figure out what it is. So we are Eloise, that is our voice. Now remember, Eloise is the friend, not the narrator, so be really careful. After you arrive home from your stay at the Ocean Hotel, you write an entry in your journal about your experience. Okay, so the format is a journal. In the journal entry, you should explain how you felt when you first learned about Jenny's plan to stay at the Ocean Hotel and why you felt like this. Describe the Ocean Hotel and your reactions to what happened there, and describe your feelings and thoughts now on how to approach Jenny about the next trip away. Write the words of a journal entry. Okay, so the voice is Eloise and she's writing in a journal, so that means the audience is herself. She's a younger girl and she's writing in her diary, so I think it's going to be semi-formal. I wouldn't expect this diary to be super formal, but she doesn't use any slang anywhere in the extract, so I wouldn't expect any slang either. So we've got voice, audience, register, purpose, explain, describe how she felt. So explain, I would say, is the main purpose. Okay, so we've got our verb. All right. So now next step, we need to plan. So I'm going to say that everything related to bullet point 1, I'm going to highlight in yellow. Everything related to bullet point 2 in blue, and everything to bullet point 3 in pink. All right, cool. So now I'm going to go over onto my insert, and I'm just going to read through once again and highlight and see if I can find some of these answers. So when I go through and highlight, I'm remembering what I'm highlighting there are details, right? But I'm going to have to summarize it in my own words too. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. So, okay. Let's see. Explain how I felt. So how I felt and why. But it's when I first learned about Jenny's plan. So not just generally throughout, but how I felt about when I learned about Jenny's plan. I learned. Okay, fine. And that's my yellow. And then next one, describe Ocean Hotel and my reactions to it. So I'm really looking out here for Eloise's reaction as a friend. I need to be careful and not talk about Jenny too much. And that's my blue. And then the last one was about planning the trip, right? Feelings now. And next trip. Okay, fine. That's gonna be pink. All right. Okay, so I'll put my insert up and I'll shut up. So I'm gonna spend at least 6 minutes, I think, going through and highlighting, trying to make sure that I get all of these answers. Shall I delete some of, I'll delete this so it's easier to see what I'm doing. So I'll keep up just the question 3 stuff so it's easier to see. Okay, let me delete all my old notes. Bye notes. Okay, right, so time to highlight now. Okay, and I'll zoom in for you. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. So what I'm seeing from looking at bullet point one is it seems like there's a lot of inference because it doesn't say how Eloise felt, but we can gather based on the information how she probably would have felt. She's not eating. She chose the last getaway, and that was to somewhere really quiet. So probably she's not going to be super happy, right? So I need to do quite a bit of inferring about bullet point one, I think. Now on to bullet point two as I carry on through. So remember, bullet point three is usually implicit, so there's really not a lot on here about what they'll do for the next trip. So I'm gonna have to guess based on information of how Eloise might act and what Eloise likes. There's quite a bit of information about what she would probably prefer to do, so I'm going to use that. All right, so everything that I've highlighted here then are details. So I've got to quickly think, how am I going to summarize and group these using my own words? Because if I just say these and don't put it in my own words, I'm not going to get the content points. So let me do that. Okay, so I've had a go at like trying to group things in my own words. For example, when it talks about all of the different sea life, the clownfish, the silvery fish, the corals, I've grouped that to say sea life. And later on, it talks about all of the pizza. So I've grouped that as lack of choice with food. So I've got those in my own words. I'm probably going to have to make up my development as I write because I'm running out of time. So I need to think, how would she feel? Were her motivations? Why did she act this way? So that's going to be my development. Okay. So I think I'm getting closer to being able to write now. So now what I need to do is I need to start writing really because I've only got half an hour left. This is the structure that I'm going to use. So I'm going to write a really short introduction and a really short conclusion, and I'm going to write a paragraph for each of the bullet points so that I can make sure that I answer each of those equally. And I've only managed to highlight one thing for bullet point 3, but I still need to make sure that I say lots of different points for that, the same as for bullet point 1 and 2. At least 3 or 4 different things I need to put for bullet point 3. So I need to be careful about that. Right, so I need to make sure I've got content points, which are these bits here in pink, how I've summarised the text in my own words. I need to make sure I'm including details from the text, which is anything that I've been able to highlight. And I need to develop, which is inferring, saying how or why someone did something or what their feelings were. Bullet point 3 in this one is very much more implicit. We've identified the VORP, and we need to make sure we say at least 5 different things for each of those bullet points. Okay. I need to make sure I sound like Eloise. So, what is she like? She doesn't use slang, but she enjoys complaining. So, I think I need to make sure that she's complaining in the diary. Oh, and I need to make sure that I'm not copying from the text. So, I need to remember not to lift, not to just directly copy from the text. And I need to remember not to just make anything up. All right, so this is my structure. Let's get right in. Okay, right. So I've started writing my diary. I'm trying to be a little bit moany. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm including lots of details from the text, but still putting them in my own words. And just keep saying how I think Eloise would have felt. Just be careful that everything you're saying is about Eloise and not Jenny, because it's really easy to get mixed up here. So I have finished my first paragraph and now I'm going to move on to my second paragraph. I need to remember to say at least 3 or 4 different things in answer to the question and not just keep repeating myself. It's very tempting to just keep banging on about the same point, but I need to make sure that I'm getting at least 3 different points in order to get a good mark in this question. All right, bullet point 2, continue A. So if you're moving on to bullet point 3, which you should be now, reminder this is mostly implicit, but you need to say at least 3 different things that that Eloise is feeling and what she might say to Jenny. I would say probably actually better to say 5 different things. So make sure that you're not just saying one thing and carrying on for a long time talking about it. You need to say at least 3 separate things. Better to say 5 separate things because you don't know what's on the mark scheme. So you've got 10 minutes left of writing, and then we're going to switch over to proofreading. If you do finish early, make sure you move over to proofreading. You can see mine's on the screen too if you would like to take a look. You got 2 minutes left. You need to start wrapping up your diary entry. Okay, we're so close. Now you have got 5 minutes left when you need to proofread your work, go back over all of your questions, just double check. And then after those 5 minutes, we will mark. So proofread now and do stick around for the marking. Time's up. Hooray. So put your pens down. Your exam is now over. Congratulations if you made it all this way through and actually did the full past paper. It's a long exam. All right, okay, so up next we are going to mark. So do get out a red pen or a green pen and get ready to mark. Okay, and now time to mark our papers. I'll share a link to the mark scheme too, but I'll have it up on the board. On the board, that's how you know I'm a teacher. I'll have it up on the screen. Um, and I'll mark mine as we go through. Okay, so 1A, the answer was as long as 18 meters. So I've got a mark there. If you just wrote 18 meters, that's fine too. 1B, I needed to define elusive and monsters. So for elusive, I put mysterious, which is also on the mark scheme here, so that's fine. And for monsters, I put creatures, so that's fine too. So you could have difficult to find, hidden, rarely seen, mysterious, beast, creature, animal, and rare would also be fine. Now, apparently clamped. So for apparently, I put seemingly, which I think is the same as seemed to be. As far as he could see, supposedly it looked or appeared. That's what you could have had, something like that. And clamped, I put latched onto, but that's not on the mark scheme. But if you have a word here that isn't on the mark scheme, but it has the same meaning, you can award yourself the mark. That has got the same meaning as stuck, attached firmly, seized onto, grabbed, holding tightly. So I think that's right. If you're not sure about yours, feel free to comment. I can tell you if I would give you the mark. I think for this one, it needs to have some sort of meaning of not just holding, not just touching, but like this firmly, tightly. There needs to be something there to suggest that. Okay, now for 1C, 2 reasons why the squid's actions in pulling the boat and blocking the rudder might have caused alarm. So I put made steering impossible, which I think is the same as boat could not be steered. And I put tentacles looked strong. And that's the first one there. So you could have tentacles look powerful, tentacles look strong, might have toppled the boat over, might have pulled the boat off course, might have broken the rudder, the boat could not be steered, stopped the boat moving, and might have broken the boat. So you cannot have tentacle was thick by itself because that's not necessarily why it caused alarm. You need to have something about strong or powerful. So you need to infer a little bit to get that mark there. Also notice that if you put the tentacle look powerful and the tentacle looks strong, that's only worth 1 mark. So anything that's on the same line in the mark scheme is only worth 1 mark. So you can't get it twice. Now for 1DI, so you could have where am I looking here? 1DI. It wasn't as aggressive or it wasn't as angry. It did not keep a grip on the ship, or it released its grip, or it was real, or it wasn't fictional. So I put, yeah, it released its grip, and I put it wasn't as aggressive. So I got both of the marks there too. That's nice. Doing well so far, doing well. So I haven't lost a mark yet. As you would hope with someone who's got an English degree, really. Okay. Explain why Mr. Krausen was ill prepared to deal with a giant squid. So see here, I just did bullet points to help make sure that I got 3 different points. So I put that he froze with terror, which is a point. He didn't have anything to scare it off. No adequate means of defending himself. And it was much bigger than him. It was very large, bigger than him. Yeah. Okay, so we got all 3 there. So you could have, he had never encountered a giant squid before, or he had never expected to come across such a creature, or he'd been caught by surprise. That he was terrified or froze with terror or so scared he couldn't move. You could have it was very large, very powerful, 7 or 8 meters long, much bigger than him, and was too big to be scared of him. And you could have no adequate means of defending himself, nothing suitable to remove the giant squid from the boat, no suitable weapon, nothing to scare it off, and you could also have only had penknives. So you needed to have 3 different points there to get all 3 marks. And then for 1E, so now we have to use our own words, so be careful that if you copy from the text, you might not have got all of the marks here, you might lose some marks for copying. So explain why humans do not know much about the giant squid. So they live in the bottom of the sea, they live in the deep sea. So few have ever seen them. Rare for one to be seen. Yes. Okay, that's my second mark. And then I've repeated, so that's not worth another mark because it's the same as that one. Um, have been found, have been decayed. Corpses often damaged. Yeah. All limbs missing. Yeah. Okay, so I've got all three there. So you could have that giant squid live at the bottom of the sea, or they live where humans can't easily go. That there have been very few sightings or few opportunities to observe them, or that they're rare. It's rare for one to be seen, only 250 sightings. That most squid are found dead, so you can't study their behaviour, or that corpses are often found damaged, so you can't study their anatomy. So once again, you need to make sure you've said 3 different points and you've said it mostly in your own words. Okay, so now we are on to summary writing. So when I mark this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight on the mark scheme and write down which number I'm hitting. And that way you can see how well you've covered the summary. So my first point should all be in this first section here because I did group it. So this should be arguments against swimming with dolphins. So I said it's got a harmful effect on their psychological health. So psychological effects, kind of. I think that's like a half mark there. I've also got one here when I say it's incredibly stressful. So highly stressful, we've got that. For them to be touched or followed by tourists, which isn't on the mark scheme. This can lead to dolphins being displaced. Surely that must be on the mark scheme. Yeah. Displaced. And then safe place is also on, but that's repeated. I don't get credited again because that's in the same bullet point. Restrict dolphins in caring for their young. Now this is on the mark scheme, but it's repeated. It's right here, so yeah. Could go extinct. Yeah. Being kept in captivity, sociable animals from being free. Kept captive. So that's 7. Got the diseases point 2. Where is that? That's number 6. And that it could affect the local economy. That's number 4. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 points there. So that's pretty good actually. And every sentence has got a content point in, even though I thought some of them would be, and just weren't. So that's sad. Okay, and then next, what responsible tour operators are doing. So reduce number of boats and tourists, limit numbers. Yeah, limit numbers. So that's number 9. Or sea on land. Watch dolphins from land. Yes, got that. Respect dolphins the same way we show respect. Yeah. 13. Allow dolphins to take the lead. Yes, that's number 10. Best not to try to touch them. Oh, hooray, yeah, 11. Okay. So overall, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 12 content points. That's great. So I've got 12 content points, so I'm doing good there. So let's see. I haven't got any excess. There's no sentences there that I needed to cross out. I've demonstrated a wide range, or I've got a wide range of relevant ideas because I've got 12 points there. And skillfully selected, sure, I agree. So I would give myself 10 out of 10 for that. Over here is an example of a student that did include quite a lot of excess. So you can see all of their content points I highlighted in green, but then these bits here in pink are irrelevant information that is totally not related to the mark scheme. So they got a lower mark for that. So yes, they got 5 out of 10 because even here too, excess. So just go through and make sure that every single one of your sentences does contain a content point from the mark scheme. Otherwise it is excess and that will bring you down the mark. But roughly, if you've got 10 content points and you haven't got any excess, you're probably in the top band. If you have got 10 content points and you have got excess, you're probably 7 to 8. So Take how many content points you've got, and then if you've got excess, drop yourself down by 1 or 2 marks, basically, is how I would do that. Okay, then, and in terms of writing, so there aren't any grammar mistakes. I have paraphrased, I've organised it into 2 paragraphs, and my spelling, punctuation, and grammar is mostly accurate, so I'm going to give myself 5 out of 5. Full marks, yay! If anyone has got some criticisms, go ahead, please. Feel free to tell me what I could improve. All right, now let's move on to question 2. So we're looking at the short answer questions. So you need to have originally, frequently, rolled her eyes, dismissively is optional, and divested of his fishtail. Now notice here that you have to have the fishtail too, because it says costume removed. So if you just put divested, you wouldn't get the mark because it wanted you to also have something that meant costume, and his costume is his fishtail. So be careful there. If you didn't put fishtail, you didn't get the mark. Sorry. And then in its vicinity, so you could have nearby, next to it, in the area for 1 mark. Sedate, you could have had calm, quiet, tranquil, and peaceful. I put calm and tranquil, so yes, good. And reclined, sat back, leaned back, relaxed, rested. And notice here you can't just have sit or lean or lay, you have to have something about back. Reclining is specifically moving back. Okay, and then for 2C, so I won't go through all of it, but the mark scheme is here, you can check. So firstly, have you got a quote? If you haven't got a quote, you've automatically got 0. Next, find your quote. So the quote that I did was energizing fresh water shower. If your quote isn't on here, you also get 0. So now I need to see 3 things that I've said about the freshwater shower. Everything is novel and exciting. So yes, I would give myself a mark for that. Energizing shows Jenny's optimistic mindset, whereas freshwater shows how she's happy to be living one with nature using fresh and clean water. Yeah, 100% 3 marks there. So you could have had anything that makes sense really, that you're inferring that the water is invigorating, refreshing, it's pure and clean, it rejuvenates her, she wants to engage with all aspects of the experience, and she's very, very motivated. If you did a different quote, then you could just have a look. Oh, sorry, zoomed in too much. Have a look and see if you think that you got all 3 marks. Now on to question 2D. So the first thing you need to do is check and see if you got the overall effect correct. So you can see here is the overview. So the overview is to show that the Ocean King is eccentric and unconvincing and comical and funny. So I put, to contrast the scruffy costume of the Ocean King with his youthful appearance to show this is all an act for him. So I've mostly got the overview there. All an act suggests unconvincing, eccentric. I could have said something about humour. I do say something about humour later on, so I would be fine. Okay, now next thing you need to do is check, are your quotes on this mark scheme? If your quotes are not on this mark scheme, you're in trouble. You can't get a good mark unless your quotes are on the mark scheme. So bedraggled, good. Oh, well, okay, never mind. Bedraggled, youthful brown eyes that twinkled. Those are actually 2. So that might be a little bit problematic. And waddled unconvincingly. Okay, so all of my quotes are on the mark scheme, so that's good. Now I need to see if I've got the meanings and if I've got the effects. So the meaning is the first part of the mark scheme before the semicolon, and then after the semicolon is the effect. So for bedraggled, it says here dishevelled, unkept. Yeah, so I've got the meaning. So drag through a brush creates a humorous effect. So I've got the overall effect there, right? And it says, tried to look like he just emerged from the sea or put on his beard hastily. Yeah, I've got that about hasty. So here I have got a quote, the meaning, and I've got the effect. So that's good. Okay, next I've also got the correct quote. Twinkled, sparkled. So I just needed to say a definition. So I've got the meaning there. And then it says, as if he's joking, enjoying the fun. And I put connotations of an inside joke. So yes, joking. As he expects the girls to see through the silly facade, he doesn't expect anyone to take his ridiculous appearance seriously. Yes, so I've got the effect there for sure. And then let's see here. Q waddled unconvincingly, waddled, walked clumsily. I put tottered, so yes, I've got the meaning. And not fooling anyone, inelegant. I put like a toddler, lack of grace, inelegant. But unconvincingly shows it's easy to see through the character he's playing good. So in this one here, I've got my overall effect, and I've got all of the quotes, meanings, and effects for all of my quotes. So that there so far is 15 out of 15. I'll just put up my second paragraph, but I won't read it out loud. Been filming for a long time. We're very tired. Um, Here is the mark scheme for the second half. You can just check, do the same as I just did. Did you get the overall effect? Did you get all three quotations? Did you get all three meanings and all three effects? So roughly what you're looking at here, in order to get into the top band, you need to have definitely got all of the quotations. You need to have at least five meanings and at least five effects. And it needs to be quite precise and quite imaginative. Over here, you still are going to have at least five or six quotations, at least five or six meanings, and at least three effects, because there will be some evidence that you understand how the language works. So that means you're getting like maybe three or four of the effects. Over here, if you didn't get all of the quotes for one paragraph, or you didn't get all of the meanings or all of the effects, you might be here because maybe one half of the text is addressed better. So I would say here you would be getting four or five meanings, but maybe not any effects, maybe just one or two effects, because it says any attempt to explain the effect is very basic or general. So you're not really getting the effect here. And then down here, you're not getting all of the quotations, you're not getting all of the meanings. Very few general, slight, or only partially effective. So you're just not really getting any of those. So if you did something that looks like mine, you're probably in 13 out of 15. Count up, that will help you figure out how many marks you got. Okay, and now we're going to do a similar thing as we did for summary writing. We're going to go through and highlight on the mark scheme so we can see how many points we got. So, first paragraph, how Eloise's feelings about Jenny's plans to stay at the Ocean Hotel and why she felt like this. So, okay, let's see. Okay, so if we go through, I'm just going to see how many I've got. So the fact that they're staying at the underwater hotel, now I don't mention that it's an underwater hotel, I just call it the Ocean Hotel, so I didn't get that content mark, which is really sad. So you needed to say something about it being underwater in order to get that mark there. So I've got the fact that initially she was skeptical, so that's some development, but she picked last time, so that is a detail. We usually take it in turns, again, that's another detail. Last time she chose this quiet hotel where they could sit around in comfy chairs and take photography, some more details. She took stunning shots that weekend, that's some development. I really do prefer more restful holidays, that is also some development because it's not clearly said, but Jenny likes the more exciting life, also development. The big attraction was scuba diving, that's some detail, and the fact that she hadn't practiced in years, that's detail, and so she felt nervous about it, that is development. Jenny wanted to train beforehand, that's also a detail. That girl doesn't know the meaning of rest, development. She can't sit still for even a second. Upon arrival, it was worse than they ever could have expected. What sort of holiday has rules? Detail. Never mind rules that require you to relinquish your camera, detail, and face cream, detail. Jenny knows I love to take photos on holiday, but she didn't do anything to protest this rule for me. Development. I felt so frustrated I could cry. Development. So we have included something about Eloise's holiday preferences. We've definitely said what Jenny's are because we says, oh, she can't sit still for a second. She likes everything more exciting. Underwater hotel, we didn't mention clearly. Scuba diving, definitely we got that point. The fact it was Jenny's turn, we got that point. And the induction, the rules, yes, we got that. So we've done pretty good for that because we've got lots and lots of details and development. So what I want you to do is to go through the rest of your paragraphs. Here's the mark scheme up on the board. How many did you get correct? How many details and how much development did you get for each of those different points? Okay, and so for this mark scheme then, basically in order for you to get anything above 10, you need to have at least 3 different answers for each of the bullet points. So you need to have, for example, Jenny's preferences, the underwater hotel scuba diving, hotel's appearance, the facilities and the food, and feelings now she's home, feelings about Jenny looking back, that they'll go on separate holidays in order to get 10 or more. Like if you don't get 3 separate answers there for each of those bullet points, you cannot get more than 10. So that will help you there. And that's because it says here, all 3 bullet points are covered. All 3 bullet points aren't covered if you can't even get 3 different points, right? An appropriate voice is used. Have you remembered to be Eloise and not Jenny? So you need to make sure that you've done that. If you have a look at my example, you can see I've written details over and over again. This would be frequent, helpful, supporting detail. And a good range of ideas would be you covering that mark scheme. Now, a big distinction between 4 and 5 is some ideas are developed, but it's not really sustained. Whereas up here at the top, you have got lots of development. Where does it say it? Developed ideas are sustained and well related to the text. So this here is an example of a paragraph that sustains development. Look at how many times I've written dev, 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 dev. Now, if you didn't get 3 different answers for each of the 3 bullet points, you might be here. You've read it reasonably well, but you might not have a lot of development at all. You should have some details, but it might also have some mechanical use of the text where you're copying a little bit. You're not focusing all of the bullet points equally, and you might not necessarily sound particularly like you're writing a diary or particularly like you are Eloise. Now, to award a writing mark scheme, you need to have a think. If you are doing this exam in November, they will assess your spelling, punctuation and grammar, but from summer onwards, that isn't included in the mark scheme. So you could, if you've typed it up, which I hope you didn't because you were supposed to handwrite, but if you've typed it up, you could run it through Grammarly to see how accurate your spelling, punctuation and grammar was. Did you really sound like you were Eloise writing a diary to herself? So, for example, I had phrases like, it was even worse than I expected. And I'm being quite brutally honest. When I finally got to sleep, Jenny woke me up, which was quite selfish and inconsiderate of her. I also sound like I am Eloise because Eloise complains all of the time, which this definitely is. There's also some use of slang. I wish I could have been a good sport, but it was difficult to suck it up and smile under such miserable circumstances. So I've got some slang, but it's not too informal. Also this bit here, a little bit of sarcasm. If only I had my camera on hand to take photos, ellipses. Oh wait, exclamation mark. Being a little bit humorous. Oh wait, I didn't because of the stupid rules. So all of these things come together to contribute to a text that does sound like it is a diary written by this girl who is very annoyed and enjoys complaining. I have paragraphed effectively. I've got a paragraph per bullet point, so I've got structure and sequence, a sound throughout. So if you did forget to paragraph and you just wrote all one giant response, that's going to definitely knock you down a couple of marks at least. So go through, where do you think that you fall in this mark scheme? Do you sound like Eloise? Do you sound like you are writing a diary? Do you sound like you enjoy complaining? Are you semi-formal? Like, are you making sure that you're being casual but not too casual? Do you use some interesting language choices? Have you got some idioms? Have you got an ellipses? Have you got an exclamation mark? Have you paragraphed correctly? And how is your spelling, punctuation and grammar? A super long video, but thank you for sticking it out. I do hope that this was useful to you. Do let me know how you got on or any questions that you have. I am quite curious. If you like more like this, again, let me know. I'm happy to do more. And best of luck with your exams, especially those of you sitting it in a couple of weeks. You can find more content like this to help you revise over on my website, totally.co.uk. There's resources over there for teachers and students. Very best of luck with your exams, and I hope to see you here again soon. Bye.